Assalamu alaikum everyone. I often get asked about my conversion to Islam, so here's a video that I did with my good friend Yasin from the Ark of Thoughts podcast. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below regarding said conversion. I hope it can be a means of contentment and motivation to you all, inshallah. Also, if you could check out the rest of my content, which will consist of Islamic audiobooks, book reviews, history and more, then do so. And if you like it, by all means, subscribe to the channel and enjoy the ride. Jazakumullah khairan.
So, I'm going to kick you off now. And I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us about your story. What was your journey to Islam? How did you come about it?
I'll get some water first.
Yeah. How did you accept Islam? What were like the major sort of turning points or major sort of incidents that sort of brought you closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I guess the first point to mention here is obviously you come from a Catholic family, don't you?
Yeah, Roman Catholic. Majority of my family's Irish, and the Irish, they're as Catholic as the Pope. So that's why I was raised as one. Yeah, and then some family members not really into religion, but I spent some years, me and my brother and I, living with our great grandmother. That's our mother's mother's mother. And she was a extremely religious woman. She would go to the church daily, which I know Muslims watching this now might think, oh yeah, I go to the masjid every day. But for Christians, that's quite rare to go to the church every day. And she would go there, and she was very spiritual, and she used to drag us along to the church on Sundays. And I think she definitely had a part to play for my brother and I in liking religion and believing in God, although our concept of God was skewed at that point. And living with her, I said definitely put us on sort of the right path in terms of religion being important in our lives. And we both went to a Roman Catholic school, so we never, I was never taught about Islam, never knew what it was until I was around 8 years old. A story that some people may know. As I was going past an Islamic high school of girls, I thought they were nuns, and then I was told by my mother, no, these are Muslims. I was like, oh right, okay. They were, they all wear headscarves like nuns. That's quite interesting. I was 8 years old. I didn't really remember much about it after that. I just cracked on with life, and I think the next instance about Muslims really coming to the forefront was 9/11.
Okay.
Now, I was 10 years old at the time, and I still remember where I was when I found out. I was at my nana's house, my dad's mum's house, and I was angry. I was like, who are these, Muslims, these barbarians who are bombing, New York and killing civilians, because that was what media portrayed. And I know that the fallout from that for Muslims, especially like older Muslims, probably ones in their 40s and 50s and 60s. Now, back then for them, it was very hard because they were targeted a lot after that. And I know there's a takeaway down in Aldershot near London where they lost so much business because of it that they, not even now to this day, they can't even put the halal sign on their takeaway. Because I went in there and asked, are you halal? And they said, we are, but we just can't let people know, because if they do, they won't come here. So, that's sort of how much the media portrayed that Islam was bad. And I'd say I got on board to some extent. I didn't have any, I didn't know really any Muslims, so I couldn't do anything about it. Not that I was planning to. But yeah, so I just thought, right, okay, Muslims bad, which is, I'm sure what the media wanted, so they succeeded in that way. Now, the story changes when I went to high school, and there was a lot of Muslims there. Maybe 30% of the students were Muslim, which, it was fine. I've never had an issue with race. Like, I think my first friend in that high school was a Chinese boy, and I got to know the Muslims. I remember one day I was just drinking some water like this, and An Iraqi guy comes up to me and goes, "Don't drink in front of me, we're fasting, it's Ramadan." I was like, right hand. So, bit by bit over the next couple of years, I learned about the religion. But then I was also learning that, English people just didn't really care about religion anymore. And why was that? Out of 120 students, say 70 of us were white English. No, I was like one of the only ones who cared about religion, and debates would happen sometimes about religion, and I was only ever the one on the Christian side. The Muslims, mashallah, they always, if they're Iraqi or Pakistani or Libyan, they were always, mashallah, they're ready to, defend Islam, but also live Islam. I remember we playing football on the fields at lunchtime on Fridays, and then like the big like year 11s would come around and like drag the younger kids off to pray Jummah. And I'm like, where are they taking them? So this is how I slowly learned about it, and there was camaraderie there.
Yeah.
But I was into Christianity still at that point, and I would read the Bible daily. My dad, which is quite funny because he's not a religious person at all, he's at best agnostic. He bought me a Bible book. It was sort of like a children's sort of Bible, which means it's just easier to read. And It's got illustration. He bought me that, and I would read it every day before bed. I'd read a few pages. I just put it under my pillow, and then before I go to bed, I just read a few pages, and then I'd pray. Which, no wudu, no washing or anything. I just put my hands together and just do my prayer whilst lying down in bed. But that was like a daily ritual. I wouldn't ever miss that. And I was into the Bible's a great book in terms of like just as an entertainment, fictional book, semi-fictional, and I was fine, I was happy. And then my brother, 3 years older than me, so I think he was maybe 17, 18. He was 18 at this time. He converted to Islam, and I was shocked. I was like, you betrayed our religion, your family, that whole thing, the forefathers.
Yeah.
And he had obviously done a lot of research at that point, because you wouldn't just convert for no reason. And he had all the answers ready to use against me. He had his plan from day one. I'm going to convert my little brother, and well, here we are. So he was well studied in everything, because I think for him, doing a slight tangent for his conversion story, he just felt a little bit spiritually void, and went on a bit of a journey. He started, at this point we weren't living with our great gran, and we weren't going to church or anything because it was boring. He started going to church by himself,
right.
And he just didn't feel it. He felt something was missing, so he went on a bit of a search for religion, and he didn't even look into Islam initially. He looked into Judaism. As a Christian, the natural sort of thing to do would be to look into Judaism, because Christianity was born out of Judaism, so that's the first one you sort of go to. And I think he even looked into Buddhism, because it's known to be quite spiritual and things like that. One religion that never really stands out for people to look into, Hinduism, from an Abrahamic faith, it's just too foreign. And then all these like Shinto and Taoism and all that from China, again, it's not enough for someone from the Abrahamic faith. So I think he eventually, being surrounded by Muslims at school, found Islam, and he sort of thought, wow, this sort of makes sense, and did his research into that and ended up becoming a Muslim. He hid it from the family for quite a long time. Apart from me, he told me straight away.
Right.
Even though it's quite strange, because we weren't the closest of brothers, we had different interests, things like that. But he told me, and then that's when the debates started happening. So I thought, well, I need to bring him back to the light. But every time, he would just point out the inconsistencies in the Bible and how Islam made more sense. And I tried to ignore him, but then I'd be there reading my Bible at night. Oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, that is an inconsistency. And he used to watch a lot of Dr. Zakir Naik, and what was his teacher called again? Ahmed Dida. Yeah. So rahimahullah. So they, I started watching some of them as well. I think that this is one thing I will give myself credit for. Whenever I learn about something, I don't learn about it from like an Orientalist view or an agnostic. From the antithesis, I will look at it from their own perspective. So I think when I wanted to learn about Islam, I learned about it from Muslims and not from Christian apologists or anything like that. So slowly but surely, I thought, oh yeah, this is starting to make more sense as it goes on. Or maybe not even that Islam made more sense. It was more that Christianity was making less sense to me, and the discrepancy between the Old Testament and the New Testament was just building within me. And I was like, how can I justify the differences between God in the Old Testament and God in the New Testament? And it got to the point where I thought, I can't be a Christian anymore. Or if I do, I need to create a new sect that believes in one God, and that Jesus is a great man and everything, but he's not part of God, because it doesn't make sense. And that's when I started learning about the Council of Nicaea and Nestorianism and the story of Salman al-Farisi, Radiyallahu anhu, which is one of the greatest stories I've ever known. And it just became evident to me that Christianity had gone down the wrong path. And I thought, right, well, I'll be like my own monotheist, but I'll still use Christianity as sort of a guide, the Ten Commandments and things like that. But that wasn't enough for me. And maybe I was 17 at this time, and I just thought, you know what? And I prayed. I went into sujood like a Muslim, because it even showed in that Bible I had, the illustration was of Jesus in sujood. So I thought, well, let me do this and pray to God the way Jesus was, and just say, look, you need to guide me here, because I don't know what to do. I don't know, should I become a Muslim? Should I go back to Christianity? Should I start a new form of Christianity, which obviously now I know is Unitarianism Christianity. They believe in God is God, and there's no splitting up, or Trinity is a foreign conception that was man-made. And I did that, and then I went bed, carried on with my life, and then a few weeks later, I remember waking up just knowing I had an epiphany, like, you have to become a Muslim. There was no ifs or buts about it. It had to be done. And I wasn't happy about it, because I thought, life's going to change. No more bacon sandwiches. And, I'm a big fan of sausage rolls. Right. Alhamdulillah now, mashallah, with Quran and veganism and everything, you can get all that stuff.
I've got to say, like, that entire movement has been like very beneficial for 100% Muslims in the West.
100%. We can talk about that in a minute, actually, when I get there. So I had converted, but as I said, I knew it was going to be a challenge, and it was. I think I ended up maybe losing more than 50% of my friends. But it was something that had to be done. You can't ignore an epiphany like that. I didn't convert straight away. I was thinking, you know what, I'm only 4 months away from being 18. Because of my family, I'd rather just wait until I'm 18 and then convert. So that was sort of like the plan I set to myself. And then it also gives me a window to research and potentially change my mind. So I just carried on. I think I told a few Muslims from my school. I was in sixth form at this point about it, and they were all so happy. And one of them, who I didn't know that well, he even said to me, and he didn't know, he said, oh, you should become Muslim, And I was like, does he know or something, or can he tell something? But it was quite strange. They were all very happy, and I wasn't already thinking about, which sect should I join or anything like that. Should I become Sunni? Should I become Shia? 99% of the things I was listening to and watching were Sunni orientated, because it's mostly Sunni Dawah that are after the converts and things like that. And there's quite a few Shias who went to my school, and funnily enough, one of them even said to me, "Oh, convert to Sunni Islam." And now he's quite strict in his Shia beliefs. So I always found that quite interesting, reflecting back on that. Why did he say that? And I don't know the answer, but I just find it really interesting. I think it's worth mentioning. But it does go to show, have you ever met a white convert who's not a Sunni? You know, it's quite interesting, that, isn't
point,
it?
actually.
You know, it's food for thought. Now, it got to the point where it was coming up to the end of 2008. I'm still 17, and I thought, why am I not converting now? I'm ready. I'd already trialed Ramadan. I'd already done my own fasting. I did it wrong because I thought you started at a sunrise, not a dawn.
Yeah.
So I remember I was just fasting by myself, and I thought, oh, this is quite cool. This is quite easy and stuff. So I thought, yeah, I just need to convert now. So I converted just before 2009 on the 31st of December 2008, still at 17. And I didn't want to do what my brother did and hide it, because I felt that just makes things complicated. You know, you just need to bite the bullet and get it over and done with. So I told my family, and, you know, they weren't happy, you know, because my dad wanted to take me for a pint for my 18th birthday. And, you know, again, media has worked for the majority of people in this country about Islam being, you know, bad. So it was difficult, but, you know, alhamdulillah, as we go on now, I'm in, like, I think my 13th or 14th year as a Muslim, and, you know, my family realised the good things that have come about from that. You know, my mum said whenever my brother, before he became Muslim, was out drinking in town, she'd never sleep until he came back home. She never had that issue with me, because by the time I was 18, I was already Muslim. You know, playing video games in my bedroom, I wouldn't be going out or anything. So she was, you know, she realised these little intricacies, and, you know, we're closer now than what we've ever been. My mother and myself, you know, we're on the phone all the time, and we live close by, and I've given her, you know, 3 grandchildren that she loves. You know, she always wanted a daughter. She never had a daughter. She's got loads of granddaughters now. She's got like 5 granddaughters. So she, you know, she's happy, and they see that, and it's just a case of now propagating the religion to them. It's quite difficult to give dawah to parents, because no matter how good you come across, they attribute it to themselves doing a good job of raising you. So it's very difficult to give dawah to parents. It's a very tricky one. You can't just go around and say, become Muslim, you know, this is why, because it just doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
I think this isn't a thing that's just restricted to converts, actually. I think, like, a lot of people who become more religious than their parents, they have this difficulty as well. How do I
suppose you would,
how do I make my parents more practicing? But I think, like, one of the things that I always take great benefit from is whenever you hear a lecture or a talk given about the disrespect of one's parents, and one of the things that they always mention is this relationship between a religious child and a parent who maybe is not as strict, or, you know, is fulfilling the commandments of the Sharia to an extent of how the child is. And the thing is, they always mention in this sort of relationship, you have to be very careful that you don't disrespect your parents. So maybe it becomes a point where you are making more dua, and you are asking more from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your effort is, I won't say non-existent, because there needs to be some effort, but it's more with a bit more tact and a bit more wisdom and a bit more
time. Time is one of the most important things, because you can't just rush it. You know, you as I said, 13, 14 years, and I'm still, you know, slowly but surely trying to teach my mum about the religion. My dad's even trickier, because he just doesn't like entertaining religion at all. But you know, alhamdulillah, you know, our relationship is very good. I live around the corner from my dad, and my mum a little bit further, but fantastic relationships, alhamdulillah, regardless. And now they both have more of an understanding and a respect for Islam, and they now share that, and that's sort of how you know, tolerance for Islam in this country, or the West in general, spreads by us converts are almost seen as like that bridge sometimes, you know, into the religion and also into the Western culture.
Well, we make dua first and foremost that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides your parents as well.
I mean, that's the only thing keeping me in the country, to be honest.
Alhamdulillah. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Isa, is, so you've talked about your conversion story, but the thing is, it doesn't just end there, right? In terms of
that's the beginning, to be honest. Yeah, definitely.
So what I want to know about also is, like, maybe like your first couple of years, because the thing is, you've obviously, before you've converted, you already know about Ramadan. You mentioned that you fasted already. You know about sujood, so I assume that you already know about salah and the injunctions of salah. But the thing is, obviously, we as Muslims who grow up, because of our families. Generally, in the places that we live, we tend to have some form of like schooling system,
Yes.
in some way, shape, or form, where when we are young, we've grown up around religion and we've been taught about the injunctions and how to perform salah and basically like cleanliness, wudu, ghusl, these kind of things. We're all taught it. But the thing is that at the start, for somebody who becomes a Muslim, all of this can be like really overwhelming, right? So what was your journey? Like, how did you learn? Were there people that maybe like really helped in terms of that journey?
Okay.
And then I want to tie that in later on when we come back around in the conversation about, when we talk about how in the UK or in the West in general, how people who are native to this country and how they might become Muslim or what we should be doing. This also forms part of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Of how should we train people up that become Muslims now?
Okay.
So, like, what was your journey first? And then we'll come back to it.
I'm glad you mentioned this actually, because I probably should have mentioned it in the last part, but we can just carry on with that. So, my brother obviously is very happy when I've never seen him so happy. Like, I always say to him, "Oh, you're miserable," but he was so happy when I told him I was converting. And I think he thought I was joking at first, just playing around with him, but I was obviously serious. And straight away, there was, alhamdulillah, there was a masjid that had just opened right near our mum's house, a 5-minute walk away. And he knew the imams there. It's only a small masjid, but he took me to see the imam, who was quite young himself. I think at that point he was maybe 26, 27. And he would bring me around to his house to teach me, reading Arabic and teaching me fiqh, the fiqh of wudu and prayer and everything from the book Talim al-Haq, which I'm sure most South Asian people are used to. And Gary Saab from the masjid, he was the one who taught me, and he just taught me, Alif Ba Ta Tha, and that would just go on for a few months until I could read. I'll be honest with you, I didn't put in a big effort in terms of the reading initially. It's only the past year or two where I've really, knuckled down of what are you doing? I need, I got too used to Roman transliteration of the Quran because it was easy and I was lazy. And he taught me all the fiqh. So I think within a week I knew how to pray properly. I'd memorized Surah Fatiha and maybe Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad, maybe a couple more after that. And I learned maybe 10 surahs, and I was praying straight away. The five a day. So they just didn't find it that difficult. I'd mentally prepared for it over the past year or so. I think the wudu was one for me. I'm a big believer in the leather socks or waterproof socks, just because it makes life a lot easier than putting your foot in a sink, in a place where you don't want to be putting your foot in a sink. When I found out the ruling of that, I've been wearing waterproof socks for 12 years, maybe not the same pair. So, that was a big help. And you sort of go through it. Some people might struggle. Some people go cold turkey. I've listened to loads of convert stories, and it was like people like Hamza from Hamza's Den. Mashallah, he went from 0 to 100 when he converted. And for me, I gave up alcohol straight away. I wasn't big into it anyway. I didn't do any other like drugs or anything. I gave up the pork. This was and obviously non-halal meat. And this was a challenge in the sense that I didn't know where to get the halal meat. I wasn't driving or anything, and I lived quite close to Old Trafford, which is actually a big population of Muslims. But I wasn't going to walk there. Do you know what I mean? To get halal meat. So Quorn was getting quite decent back then. It was there wasn't a big amount, but there was a few bits here and there. So I just remember eating these were like fake lamb steaks, Quorn steaks, and I was just eating them it felt like for decades, but it was maybe a few weeks, and eventually I persuaded my mum to take me to the halal butchers, and we bought loads of burgers, lamb burgers and stuff from halal butchers, and that was fantastic. And then I sort of got into a routine then. Asda that we went to they had a halal section, and I started cooking for myself at that point, because I thought, let my mum worry about my little brother who's he's a lot younger than us. He's only 13 now, so he was like 1 or 2 at the time.
Yeah.
And I started cooking for myself, and I started doing that, and I was fine after that. I had my halal food, so I could start replacing the things that I'd missed so much, like sausage rolls with Quorn sausage rolls, bacon for Quorn. I call it faken, Quorn's bacon. And then turkey rashers are now quite popular, so alhamdulillah, I've run the turkey rashers at my house.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I think music was quite a difficult one, because obviously most Muslims know it's haram, but it's not sort of pushed at the forefront.
Yeah.
You won't ever hear like Mufti Menk talking about music being haram. It's something that you sort of learn more when you study into it. So I still listen to music. I think initially I had like the mindset like I was going to struggle to find a wife because I'm white, and generally, Pakistanis can only marry Pakistanis and stuff like that. So I still maintained an interest in girls, because I just wanted. I almost had like this inferiority complex. Like, am I going to be able to attract? Do Pakistani girls like white guys? Sort of thing. So that was one thing that I probably should have, stopped. But it was. I think that was more of a worrying thing that I was doing, and I don't know if other people have that mindset. But I don't know if that's just unique to me. But I was worried about that. I soon came to realise that that wasn't the case at all. If anything, you actually get quite a lot of women throwing themselves at you. But I wasn't. I think eventually I got to the point where I thought, well, this, I shouldn't be speaking to women, and I eventually got to the cold turkey stage where it's, I need to find a wife. And alhamdulillah, I think I met a girl through a masjid in Manchester when I was 19. She was 17, and then got to know the family, Somali family, or Barawa, which is complicated. It's probably more Yemeni than anything else, but living in Somalia. And we got married a year later when I was 20. I think she was 19. She just turned, it was just after her 19th birthday. So we got married, and that was almost 10 years ago. And alhamdulillah, we've got three children now, and that's pretty much it in terms of that story. Yeah.